أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى عطرته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. We have been speaking about the idea that these applications of the Imam are more than just prayers, rather they are instructions. These men of God were not given to idle speech, and as it is said that Kalamul Imam, Imamul Kalam, the Kalam of the Imam is the Imam of Kalam. The speech of the Imam is the best of speech. So whenever they speak, whenever they say things, whenever they leave behind instructions or hadith, it is befitting that we pay attention, that why has Imam asked what he has asked? What is the priority he has placed in asking? What has he asked for first? What has he not asked about? So that we also understand from that, inshallah ta'ala. From tonight also, alhamdulillah, we have a special extradition to our audience, and we welcome her with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We had reached this place where we were discussing this line, وَقْفِفْ أَيْدِيَنَا عَنِ الظُّلْمِ وَالسَّرِقَةِ. O Allah, help us restrain our hands away from doing dhulm. Dhulm is a kind of Islamic concept. It's very difficult to translate into English. People say transgression, oppression. These are just words. In Gujarati, we have got its own meaning, Amara par zulam kare. It's just kind of like man heran kare. But dhulm is a concept in Islam. It is a concept where you actually do not give due attention to that particular thing that it was designed to receive. And that you actually have an imbalanced attitude, that is dhulm. And we said yesterday that one can do dhulm to oneself and one's own self-interest. Ironically, when human being is known as a selfish being, that human being always looks after number one first. But in Islamic idea, he actually does not. He thinks he is, but he has forgotten himself, as Mawla says in Nahj Balagha, that I wonder. You know, Imam has a whole series of sayings that begin with ajibtu. When you get a chance, you can look them up. Ajibtu, I wonder, I am surprised at. In this particular saying, he says, I am surprised at a person who, when they lose something, they are unable to get peace until they find it. They run from here and there and uncover this thing and that thing until they find it, and there is distress in them because they have lost a possession. When they have lost themselves and they don't care. They have lost their way in life. Day after day, week after week, year after year, continues while you are lost, but you're oblivious of the problem. And you march on thinking that you are doing the right thing and that you have the right sense of priorities. So dhulm on oneself, and of course then dhulm on others. We talked about that. We talked about the business of stealing and its wider connotation. And وَغْضُضْ أَبْصَارَنَا مِنَ الْفُجُورِ وَالْخِيَانَةِ. Fujur, this absar here, restrain our eyes from that which is a betrayal and that which is low and despicable. We talked about that a little bit as well. Remember that there are two kinds of inputs that these organs give. Do not imagine for one moment that this eye that Allah has given us and that ear that He has given us, the input goes only into a lump of flesh or few bones, and then they're coded into a way that either the occipital cortex, the visual cortex, or the auditory cortex understands it and that is what it is. It doesn't just end there, believe me. We're quite clear from our hadith that what is seen and what is heard goes much deeper. And its effects are much deeper into the human psyche, into the soul than we even realize. So that is what is being referred to here when, Ya Allah, help us not to take in from these organs those inputs that settle like poison in our soul, that block us from achieving that which is sublime, that keep us forever in the muddy pool of the mundane, and we cannot see more than that. When we interact with one another, there's a sathi level at which we interact, right? We do not interact with friends, with scholars, with even parents in the way we are meant to interact, but a very surface way. And that is because we have blocked the channels to growth. I want to comment on something before I move on. Oftentimes, communities, I go to different communities, people do things differently. Today we had a vigil. Did you see, I hope everybody came, did you see the enthusiasm with which the children were participating in that? You ask a madrasa child, a teacher rather, how difficult it is to keep those children occupied for the, I don't know how long our program lasts, 45 minutes an hour. It's a hard task because kids' minds move around so fast that you cannot give. But did you see that just by changing the setting, Imam Hussein was mentioned, Imam Hussein was remembered, and beautifully so by the kids and by a whole bunch of people who have been named, mashallah, after Ahlul Bayt and after their followers, they came and talked. One of the things that we need to realize, because this often comes up, and I personally feel people get confused on this, is, at least in London, people argue about whether we can do this kind of nauha, we can do this kind of matam, whether we can do tatbir, whether we can do kama, whether we can, do zanjir, and people, say this is wrong, this is right, and so on, and it's confusing. Remember, in this debate and every debate, there's always two things, and if you conflate these two things, you will be confused if you mix them up. There is the essence of an idea, an essence. And then there is the manifestation of that essence. So there's a core value, which is very important, which must never be abandoned. But different people, different communities will manifest that essence in their own way, and that is good, as long as the essence is not forgotten. For example, simple example, where there are two direct opposites. In England, when somebody passes away, if it's a colleague or a friend and we have to go there to show our respects, in the beginning it's very strange because there is a lot of laughter. So they have gathered and they're going to remember this person and show videos of crazy things that happened in his life and how he participated in this, and the remembrance will be one to bring back those memories of this person who has died. Now, do you think we could ever pull something like that in one of our Barmanis Masiks here? No. It would be deemed as disrespectful. Although, what is wrong within reason to call people and remember the good times that this person contributed to your life? Anyway, that doesn't matter. What I'm trying to say is the core principle is to remember and acknowledge and register the loss of a loved one. That is happening on both sides. Whether you have, a wake for him and, of course, other things which are haram, like, having drinks in his name, I'm not saying that. Or you have jokes about him, that is their way. Our way is different. But do you realize that both of us are attempting to do the same thing? And that is what? To remember the passing of someone we cared about. That is the value, that is the essence. When it comes to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala. The core value is that we can never forget the stand of one brave man against injustice and tyranny. That is the core value. All right. Now, how you choose to mourn that? Really speaking, it is very difficult for one person to tell another person that what you are doing is wrong. because we don't know. Yes, there are some collective practices ulama have cautioned us about because they have a different impact on the reputation of the Shia and so on, it's its own place. But oftentimes people look at the manifestation and get trapped there, that this wasn't correct, this was a bit different. Majlis hame chene bare raikha, Majlis Bolana Kalbe Sadiq Sahib, mashallah, may Allah give him long life. He has just begun reciting after a long time. He was unwell. A great, great scholar. May Allah give him long life. He once said to me that Maulana Athar Sahib marhum told him, Kalbe Sahib, Sadiq Sahib, I have double booked, so you have to recite the majlis. He said, no problem, okay, fine, I'm free, I'll go. So he said, these Pathans came and took me, and the majlis was outside, and they had put a mimbar on the grass. He said, that was a very strange thing for me in India. He said, on top of that, suddenly I saw them standing with AK-47 rifles, which is also was a little bit disconcerting because it's normal for Pathans to have one of those, but for Maulana it was new. He said, I began the majlis and I mentioned Amirul Mu'mineen. Someone said, Nara Haidari, and these guys all began to shoot upwards. They're AK-47s. Maulana said, that was a short majlis. I sort of finished in 10 minutes. I thought, if I make a wrong point, they will turn the gun like this, it'll be a problem. But it was a majlis of Abba Abdullah al-Hussein outside in a different place. The point I'm trying to say is that different things happen in commemorating, in Azadari, in Marcia. One place I went to, they said, Aya Marcia nati parata banaya spoken word thai. Spoken word is what those youngsters relate to. But for them, they have tears in their eyes. Maybe you're not used to it. Fine. Is it such a great problem? Can we not go home and put on what we are used to and listen to one majlis in the lecture we are used to? The night is there, we can listen and do Azadari. Yes or no? The crime is not how it is done. The crime would be if we get trapped in the manifestations and forget the essence. That we did all these things. I disagreed with you, you disagreed with me, maybe we agreed, we did it together. No one ever stood up for justice when injustice was happening anywhere in their life, or anywhere in the world, or anywhere in your local, whether it is to do with Muslim agenda, non-Muslim agenda. That is the problem. So we need to, whenever these debates come in our lives, in the decisions we make, we have to understand manifestation is one thing, value, essence can never be lost. Right? Essence is that we can never forget Hussein alayhi salam. We can never forget that stand in Karbala. And our people and our children and their children will change in the way they commemorate it. We have to pass on to them the value. Right? If God gives you another 30 years in life, this majlis will look very different. But if the majlis is there, you have been successful. If the remembrance is there and these kids come together to say, Ya Hussein, then we have been successful. The language, the style, the marthiyas, maybe whatever they do, that is secondary. So alhamdulillah, the fact that we have that community spirit where the boys and girls come, they participate, they say what they can, give them chance. They may not be very experienced, so what? But they have that habit and confidence that is given to them that they can speak about Imam Hussein and their community supports them, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah give us more of that. Please recite a salawat. Allahumma salli ala. The next stanza or phrase in this dua that the Imam is asking, now he's turning, as I said, to the people, to the society, and to different demographics of society. وَتَفَضَّلْ عَلَى الْعُلَمَائِنَا بِالزُّهْدِ وَالنَّصِيحَةِ. He now talks about the need in any community to have scholars. We, as the Khoja community, the general, we have mullahs, local, homegrown, and who can perform to a certain level. Their level of expertise is limited. They may not have gone to formal Hawza study. We have relatively few studying in the highest levels of Hawza Ilmiya. You may or may not know in Mujtahideen terms, the Khoja world, we have now 4 Mujtahids. However, that is a lot less than other communities of comparable size. Right? We are not that many, but we should have more than 4. Last year I was with, not last year, a couple of years back with the World Federation president, and one of the Iraqi Shias asked us, so how many Khojas are there? He said 124,000. 1,24,000. The truth is, it wasn't far out, only by 200-300 less. So we have 1,24,000. Okay, alhamdulillah, it's a good number. The point is, we don't have that many representatives at the highest levels of learning. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. This is Surah Tawbah, 9th Surah, 122. It's a famous verse. وَمَا كَانَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ لِيَنْفِرُوا كَافَّةً. It is not practical for all the mu'mineen to go together to study ilm. It's not practical. فَلَوْلَا نَفَرَ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ. However, every community can isolate some representatives from them who can go and يَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ. This word fiqh comes from pondering and deep study of deen. They should do that, but they should not stay in Najaf and Qom for 20 years. No, they should study to a level at which they gain expertise, and then what? يَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ وَلِيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذَا رَجَعُوا. So that they can guide their qawms, their communities, when they return. رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَحْذَرُونَ. So that they can warn them of how to behave and how not to behave. Brothers and sisters, we have also responsibility to isolate people within our community who we think can go for that. Used to be a time, I tell you, when you couldn't get into any course, they'd say, Aija Maulana Baniya. It's not that way anymore. I tell you, in Qom at this moment in time, perhaps there are about 40,000 students. In Najaf, I'm not sure. Maybe like number or more. The very top of them, those who are mujtahids and those who are excellent in their studies are only hundreds. Why? You can go to Qom and you can study first year, you learn a bit of language, you'll get through maybe that first year. By the time the second year and third year rolls around, it's not a cup of cake, it's not a cup of, it's not easy. Why? The exams are tough, expectation is tough. You don't pass, you stay back. You don't pass, you stay back, and then you don't pass, they advise you to go back home. What I'm trying to say to you is, the person who is successful in Najaf and Qom could have been successful in any other career he chose. He has to have a basic level of competence. You can't just send anybody else there. So it is for community to look and see the bright minds amongst the men and the women and offer them this solution. Right? It doesn't have to be in the way people think that he will go to study, then how will he look after himself? No, it is a bursary. Look at other communities. Other communities have created a system where their students study to PhD levels in Islamic studies, and they know when they finish their studies, they have a 5-year confirmed employment at the rates that junior professors earn from this community trust. If you go to a father or a mother and say to them, mashallah, your child is exceptional, is very intelligent, what are they going to be? What are they thinking of doing? And they say to you, oh, something in medicine, perhaps a doctor, perhaps this. And you say to them, how about sending them to Qom to become Maulana, to become a scholar? That's going to be a hard sell. They're going to say, no way, my son can be everything, and you want him to be? But that is where we need a paradigm shift. We need to shift our thinking. And community should say to them that your main worry is that they're going to come here, they won't have stuff to do. There is a solid bursary. Your child will study for 5 years, fully paid. When they come here for 5 years, they're fully sponsored. If your child fits certain criteria, he will qualify for this. And we are giving 2 or 3 from our Jamaat, say, every so often. That will bring this level of academic prowess and strength into our communities from kids of our own. And this is what we have been charged to do. Allah says that you all should send small representative groups of yourselves for tafaqahu fi deen, to study deen at the highest level, so that they can come back and guide you in your vernacular, in the language you understand. They are boys who grew up in your town, so they know this life, and they come and talk to you in your language. Rather than, for example, having this something that comes from somewhere else and the fit is not too good, maybe half the community says, I understand the language, the other community says, I don't understand the language. You got this kid who's come out from you, he'll speak the languages you need to speak, right? It's something to think about. It's something to think about, and for a community to actually put aside some funds for that, and then look around for youngsters, boys and girls who can fit those criteria, inshaAllah ta'ala. Please recite as-salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I am skipping some of these points that obviously we can talk about a lot more, just so that we can give some snapshots. وَعَلَى الْمُتَعَلِّمِينَ بِالْجُهْدِ وَالرَّغْبَةِ. Muta'allimin here is being used as the opposite of ulama. Or an alim is one who guides, and muta'allim is one who seeks that guidance, right? So muta'allim means every one of the rest of us. So the ulama have gone, every one of us is muta'allim. We are trying to learn this knowledge. As Mawla says something very, very tough in Nahj Balagha, he says, you know that sermon where it starts like this, that Mawla one day was not happy. He was a little bit despondent in the mosque in Kufa. He gave a speech, right? And then he gave a deep sigh. He gave a deep sigh and then he walked out. Others went home after that, but Kumail, because of his love and attachment, he was not happy with that. He followed him. And he saw that Mawla is not going back to Kufa. You've seen Kufa in the home of Imam. He's not going that way. He's going into the Sahara, into the desert. After a while, Imam says, Manant. Who is it? He says, Ana Kumail. And then the khutbah begins. This is in Nahj Balagha. Imam says to him, you know, he's obviously thinking about things. And he says to him, Kumail, remember, inna nasa thalatha. People are only three. There is no fourth kind. Fa'alimur Rabbani, the godly scholar. Wa muta'allimina fi sabil najat. And those who seek this knowledge, they are on the safe path. And the third of them is wastage in creation. They exist, but they have no purpose ultimately. They exist there, but in the fullness of time, they have no weight in creation. Either you are an alim, or you are seeking this ilm actively, or you are a waste. So, wal muta'allimin. Imam says, let the muta'allimin have juhud and raghba. Juhud and raghba are two things that, juhud means hard work. Well, willing to work hard, willing to stay up a night or two, willing to actually go from door to door, juhud. This juhud can only happen with raghba. Raghba means interest. If you don't have an interest in something, you're not going to stay up for it. But if you're interested in something, right, you'll travel, okay, to check it out because you have interest. Now, how to inculcate this interest, Imam is saying that not only they are willing to work hard to understand their religious duty, but they have interest in it too. Okay, this is something that we have to do deliberately in the beginning. Okay, and we need to make sure that we give due time to learning religion, learning Quran, reading one dawra of history. I'm not saying we all become ulama, or we spend hours and hours on it. But you know what? We are Shia. That's got to mean something. Huh? If I say, for example, I'm an optometrist, you will say to me, so if I get a red eye or I get this, what should I do? And if I turn and say to you, you know what, I don't have any idea. No clue. You're going to say, to kem bole she tu optometrist? If I say I'm a Shia, and somebody says to him, so can you tell me a little bit about the history of Janab Sayyida, the history of Imam Ali? No, that I don't know. You'll have to go to Ayatollah Sistani, Ayatollah Google, Ayatollah this, but not me. I don't know. Why? Why should we claim we are Shia if we don't know basic things about our faith? So, Juhud. And there are many ways that we can do them. In Hadith we have. Let me bring for you from Hadith. Imam alayhi salam says that when you are faced with a difficult task, begin it. Do not look at the entire task and be put out by it, but begin it, because with your beginning, the task gets smaller. This is a basic fact, it's true. Oftentimes, as we enter into the problem, we realize that perhaps we underestimated it, or overestimated it rather. It's not as big as all that. It's not as big as all that. Somebody recently in London said to me that they were battling with this thing about time. Time nati, right? And they were always running back on their projects. So then their boss or someone sent them on a time management program, right? They went on this time management program. He says, now by 11 o'clock, I've done my day's work. I said, really? He said, by 11 o'clock, I'm done for the morning. That is, the morning which used to finish at 1 o'clock, he said, by 11, I'm done. Because of just the way I look at the tasks, right? It's when we carry them in this kind of hazy smoke in our head, we think, we when you start breaking them down, you can get through most of them quite quickly. Then Imam alayhi salam said that surround yourselves with people of industry. Means the industry here means energy. If you surround yourself by a person who says to you, you know, aaj ka kaam kal ka kaam parso, itni jaldi kya hai, jina hai barso, that kind of, you know, you surround yourself with such a person, you are going to become like that. And everything for you is procrastination. Everything for you is kale karsu, aaj su jaldi che. You see, this Abbas is talking about religion and all that. Yeah, he's talking to when I'll retire, I'll do it. When I'll be 65 or whatever the retirement age is, I will read a Dawra of history. I will read the Quran cover to cover. First of all, we don't know whether these days will come to us. And if they come to us, what will be our mental and physical, etc., you know, situation. So this is something that Imam said, surround yourself by people of industry. Do not surround yourself with people who are lazy, because it rubs on you. And the Imam alayhi salam said that this is from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the human soul is not created in a manner that it is constantly inspired. Your heart is like a horse. When you find the horse has energy, ride it with all your strength. And when you find it tired, let it be. It means what? Don't have such a heavy daily program, right, that you exhaust yourself and so on. But at the same time, when you have time, when you have and you feel energetic and you want to do stuff, at that time don't put a movie on or a tennis match on or golf or something. You know, that is when you're low and you don't have anything to do and you're trying to just while away the time. But when you feel, yes, I need to be doing something, do it. Right? Surround yourself by people. You'll find that if you look at yourself, there are certain people, certain books, certain lecturers, certain places. Wherever you are there, you feel inspired. You come away feeling, nah, I need to be doing more than what I'm doing. I need to be getting on with it. Once you've identified who these people are and where these people are, they are like gold dust. If it's a person, try to be in with that person a lot. If it is a lecturer you find inspiring, listen to their lectures more. If it's a particular book or an author who whenever you read, you feel, nah, this is what I need to be doing. This is the way I want to be going, read that. You know, there's one book I read almost once every couple of years. And whenever I mention it, I lose it because everybody asks for it. So go buy your own. This is a book called Ayyuhal Walad, Oh My Dear Son. It is only about 70 pages. It's published by Islamic Text Society or something. You can Google it. It was written by Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, the great Hanafi scholar, the author of Ihya Ulumuddin, Revival of the Islamic Sciences. It was the last work he wrote in response to a letter written to him by one of his senior graduate students, who wrote to him, my dear master, guide me in a way that will suffice me. In reply, he wrote to him, oh my son, ayyuhal walad. Okay, that man was not a son anymore, he was a scholar himself. Abu Hamid writes this work at the height of his intellectual prowess. At the end of his life. It was the manuscript, one of the manuscript copies was found under his pillow when he died. And this book, I find, whenever I read it, Ayyuhal Walad, it inspires me to do much more than what I'm doing in whatever field. The way Abu Hamid has written that to his student. So find those kind of inspirations and read those. Conversely, there are people who just drain you, things you do that drain you spiritually. Stay away from those things, reduce those things. This is how we can do that. And the other thing that is useful sometimes is if you make some sort of commitment. Oftentimes, your journey towards knowing more about your religion, more about your faith, your duty, and all that begins when you have to start to teach it to somebody. A lot of people said to me, "Ki jare hu madrasa mein chalu karo sikhar," and I realized I have to now read myself. Because these kids are looking up at me with such trusting eyes, I feel guilty that I don't know anything about what to tell them. Chenga, chenga, maruch. Right? Because they are asking me questions, I'm thinking, what do I tell this person? And that forces them to go back and read a dawra of history, one whole history of this, all online. You can do it, I tell you, in a few months. The whole history of the Prophet you can read. The whole history of Ayyim alayhi salam, a primer you can read. One whole reading of the Quran in English you can do in 1 year, right? But you need to get, sometimes by putting yourself in that situation, it forces some sort of movement in that, inshallah. And finally, we have the people who listen. Imam is saying, when people listen to nasiha, that's all of us in various times, we are listening to guidance. Then, وَعَلَى الْمُسْتَمِعِينَ بِاتِّبَاعَ وَالْمَوْعِظَةِ. Imam alayhi salam is saying that as for them who listen, let them have in their hearts the niyyah to take in what they are listening and not just be entertained by it. This is the truth. We spoke about it yesterday a little bit, about how people believe that the Maulana is talking to somebody else, not me. He's talking to the guy sitting next to me. We talked about this is human nature. But if we do that, we miss out. People listen to maybe thousands of lectures by the time they reach a certain age, especially in our community, we have a lot of majalis, right? How come we didn't become farishta along the way? We should have done, because we heard enough Quran verses, we heard enough hadiths, right? If we followed every one of them, we would be on a different level altogether. Why doesn't it happen? Because we do not have the active listening skill set. And sometimes things are said which are uncomfortable because we can sense some trace of that in ourselves, quite frankly. And you realize, that would involve me changing, and change is very hard. So we need to do that. You cannot wait. You cannot wait to change yourself. You cannot wait to change your kids. Because there are a lot of things that you rely on right now which won't be there later on. You might not have your hands, you might not have your eyes, you might not have your legs, right? You might not have your mind. Oftentimes I tell people, what age are you starting with these kids to teach them deen? The Paigambar didn't say 7 varas mate parakram kare. He said for 7 years they are master. There's a difference. Doesn't mean that you have no duty of care. And parents, sometimes they feel there's plenty of time. You know why? You take a 6-year-old kid and you say, Besija, and immediately he sits down. Right? Whatever he's doing masti, the moment you actually show your power, he immediately will listen. Okay, you can always overcome him. So you are very confident because you know that you have control. Right? The French people do something interesting. French, I don't know why, but they eat frogs. It's always on the menu, frogs' legs. And it really is frogs' legs. Not like, Peking duck, which is fish, but frogs' legs. Hi. Now, how do they cook these frogs' legs? They have a very interesting style. They get a stove to start boiling, a pot of water, and they lob these frogs alive into them. Now, strangely enough, the frog doesn't get out of that. Because frog here is thinking, this is nice, it's a little bit lukewarm, it's all good. Plus, he knows for sure that this pot is 1 foot in height. My rear legs can jump 5 feet. Anytime I want to get out of here, one jump and I'm gone. I'm in control. Let me enjoy the hot water for now. It carries on. Cook is watching, frog is watching cook. There's a battle going on. Frog thinks you're a mug, cook knows he's a mug. It gets too hot. Okay, frog says, هَذَا فِرَاقِ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَكَ. Now time to leave. And he gives an almighty jump. And to his horror, he can only jump a few inches. Those hind legs on which he had so much confidence have been cooked and atrophied in that hot water. Those muscles are cooked. They don't have the power he was expecting. And his last moments are just there hopping 1 and 2 inch and thinking to himself, I should have got out of here a long time ago. That's exactly what happens with parents. Kid gets older, kid goes and does something so horrible at the age of 12, 13. Parent slams his foot down and says, Besija. And the kid says, Tame besija. I'm not sitting down. You know, that day is gone now, I'm doing what I like. You are now talking to a young adult. You talk to me properly. And you look at him and you wonder where it happened. When? When did my rear leg muscles get atrophied that I don't even have authority in my own home? So, do not imagine you can do things in the future. Everything is now, with all your faculties and strengths, to begin now. This journey, Beno, will not begin later on. All right. When we talk about standing for justice, tomorrow, as you know, is Julus. And many people think maybe, is Julus, should we go, shouldn't we go? I'll just share one thing with you. When the Imam alayhi salam, Ajjalallahu farajahu sharif, Allahumma salli, his first speech is recorded. And many riwayat give slightly different versions of what he will say in the very first speech he gives. However, almost all of them are united in this phrase that he will give. Certain aspects, every hadith agrees that he will say. And it's a bit unusual what he will say. He will say, amongst the things I have come back to do is to avenge the killing of Hussein bin Ali in Karbala. Now, I ask you this. If a world leader was to say that now, today, how many ordinary folk would even understand what he's talking about? They look at him. So what did he say? And then there would be a whole kind of synopsis. This Hussein, what did he mean? What was he referring to? Because Hussein ibn Ali is not known by the people. I tell you that the Imam wouldn't say this unless Hussein was known in every house as a household name for and synonymous with standing up for justice by Muslims and non-Muslims. If you told them, do you know Hussein? He says, standing up for justice. That's what Hussein means. And the only way the Imam will say that, and the only time the Imam will come is when he can say that, is if each and every one of us put Hussein on the map with people who are not believers in Hussein, but we need to tell them that there was a man who stood up for justice. And the name of Hussein ibn Ali becomes synonymous across the world, across cultures, as standing up for what is right. And the only way we do that, one of the opportunities is this Julus, where we go out in big numbers, wanting to meet people. We don't have to march in a way that we are very unapproachable. We're hanging out, talking to people. Do you know what's happening? No. What are you guys up to? We're talking about the grandson of the Prophet. His name was Hussein. Remember that name, Hussein. I'm giving you a leaflet about it. There is a website. Who is Hussein? Whatever website. I'm not sure, Hussein, what website are you guys doing? But make sure there is details people can go to, right? It's not a static thing, because they'll have forgotten later. You tell them, look it up. We can send you an info pack on what you want, and this is our number, you can get in touch. We're spreading in our city. We are doing for Imam Zamana at least that if he was to appear here, the name would be known by a few people. It is important that we attend, and inshallah we should try to attend. Finally, when we look at Karbala, these older people who had seen Rasulullah in the time of Rasulullah and who had seen Amir al-Mu'minin Fatima, we can understand their akhlaq. What is it that made even the children very different? It was this careful parenting, early parenting. That right from the beginning, the households had a religious ethos in them. It had religion. It was the kids felt the presence of Islam in the Quran and Hadith. You know, in Karbala, amongst Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, the Ma'sumeen or the Ahlul Kisa were all represented. Yeah. Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam was representing himself. Ali was being represented by Abbas alayhi salam. Janab Sayyida was being represented by Zainab. But Hassan ibn Ali alayhi salam was also represented on that day. And he was represented by a young man who, whenever Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam would look at him, he would say, "You remind me so much of my brother. In the way you talk, in the way you move. Every time I look at you, I remember my brother." And this is Al-Qasim. Al-Qasim alayhi salam, they say, was 13, was 14. He wasn't an old boy. He wasn't meant to go and fight in war. War was between men, grown men. But such was his zeal and enthusiasm that on that night of Ashura, when Imam alayhi salam turned off the lights in the tent so that people did not feel embarrassed, he said to them, "If you wish to go, you can go, because these people only want me. If they get me, they will be satisfied. You do not have to die at my side. You have to leave." At that time, Qasim turns to his uncle. Look at what the boy asks. He says to him, "Dear uncle, is my name amongst the roll call of martyrs? Will I die tomorrow?" Imam alayhi salam doesn't answer him directly. He says to him, "Tell me, when you think about death in the way of Allah, about Shahada, Qasim, how does it feel?" And he says, "Uncle, I swear to you, for me, the idea of being martyred in the way of Allah and in your defense is sweeter than honey. Ahalla minal asl." Then he says, "But uncle, my name is there, right? My name is there?" Again, Hussein doesn't have the heart to tell him. He says to him, "Qasim, you should know that even baby Ali Asghar's name is in there." So Qasim is taken aback. He says, "Will they come into the tents then? Will they come into our ladies' tents and take our boy babies from their cradles?" Imam alayhi salam said, "They will put our tents on fire, Qasim." On the day of Ashura, when the martyrs from Ahlul Bayt began to go, when Ali and Al-Akbar went, Qasim knew it was time. He went. He stood in front of his uncle. For some reason, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam was reluctant to say yes. He knew he would have to say yes, but he didn't want to say yes just then. He wanted to see the boy for longer. He said to him, "Qasim, you know that your mother needs you. She is a widow. She is alone." He says, "Mother has sent me. It is mother who has sent me." He said, "You go to her. Soon, soon. Not now." Qasim goes back and Farwa says to him, "What is the matter?" He said, "He will not let me go, my uncle." Then Farwa remembers, and there are many riwayat about this in different ways. She says, "There is a letter that I have written by your father." And he said, "On the day when Hussein alayhi salam's darkest hour will come, give him this letter." So they look in the sanduk and they find a letter. Qasim takes this letter eagerly to his uncle. Hussein ibn Ali looks at it and begins to weep because he recognizes the hand of Imam al-Hassan. He says to him, "Oh, my brother Hussein, on this day you are alone, but I am not at your side, but my son is with you. Accept him in my stead. Let him go. Let him go and sacrifice himself for you." Now Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam does not say no anymore. Hamid ibn Muslim says that Hussein ibn Ali took this child, hugged him, and he cried for a long time. Clutching him, he wept. Then he dressed him himself. But the dress was unusual. He dressed him in a white izar, and he put a white dress on him, a white cloak on him. It is as if Imam alayhi salam says to himself, "This boy, I dress him in his coffin, because when he comes back, we will not be able to give him kafan. This boy now enters. Hamid ibn Muslim says, and Sheikh Saduk writes, that he said, we saw a young boy come out. He says, I will never forget him. Because he was dressed all in white, he looked like a splinter of the new moon. And I remember clearly that one of his sandals was undone. This boy comes. Don't forget that he is a boy of Ahlul Bayt. It is said that he had been trained even from the year before in martial art by both, in fighting with a sword by both Ali al-Akbar and by Abbas. He knew how to handle himself, but still he was young. He came, one of the enemies said, Wallah, I will make his mother cry. My son will go and kill him. He tells his son to go. His name is Azra Kashami. His son is killed by Qasim. And so his other son killed by Qasim. And in this way, the boy begins to kill the enemy to a point where one person says, I am going to kill him. Al-Amr al-Azdi says to his companion that I will kill this boy. A time comes when for some reason, Qasim notices that his slipper is undone. His sandal is undone. He leans to tie it. As he leans to tie it, Amr al-Azdi comes from behind him and hits the boy so hard on the head that Qasim can no longer stay on it. Abbas alayhi salam, Hussein alayhi salam are enraged at this cowardice, that you attacked a child who was not fighting at that time, who had withdrawn to the side. They enter this thing. They enter into the battlefield. Amr al-Azdi shouts out, Hussein has come to fight. Abbas has come to fight. The enemy begins to go from one side to the other side. Some of the enemy are trying to run away. Some of the enemy are trying to regroup. But in the middle there is a body. There is a body of a young boy who is being crushed. Hussein reaches him finally. He takes the child to his hand. Hamid bin Muslim says, Qasim did not used to be a tall boy, but Hussein holds him to his chest, and as he begins to carry him, the boy's legs are dragging on the ground. He brings him, he puts him next to Ali al-Akbar. Sheikh Mufid says he puts one hand on the chest of Akbar. He puts one chest on the hand of Qasim, and he says to me, Oh Allah, be witness that they are killing my sons. They are killing the sons of Fatima. La la'atullahi ala al-qawmi al-zalimin. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ مَاتَ يَا Hussein. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein. Brothers, these are the nights of Azza. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.